بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Honored and respected Imams, scholars, guests, community leaders, welcome, alhamdulillah, to our next session where we are privileged, alhamdulillah, to hear from a number of our teachers, scholars, and attorneys on a critical topic on prenuptial and postnuptial agreements in the pursuit, inshallah, of building strong marriages and strong homes. Inshallah, I'll take as little as possible of their time. We'll first hear from each of three speakers. Then, inshallah, we will have, after a word from our sponsor, the remaining time, inshallah, for question and answer. I'll introduce each speaker, inshallah, as they begin. We'll be starting, inshallah, with our honored Sheikh, Dr. Walid Basiouny, who is a senior scholar, mashallah, well known, alhamdulillah, to each of you in Houston and among AMJA. He gives fatwa as a member of the Permanent Fatwa Committee. For AMJA is the president of Al-Maghrib Institute, the head of the Islamic Theology and Ethics Department, and the Imam of Clear Lake Islamic Center, among many other responsibilities. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala grant him tawfiq. فليتفضل.
In the name of Allah, all praise be to Allah, and His finest peace and blessing be upon Messenger Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm welcoming you all in this assembly. We ask Allah to benefit us and you with it, and make us of those who are consistently drawing benefit from it. كما تحب شيخ. I wish to mention this is about the marital agreement, this session. At times we can become desensitized to things, and we lose sight of this being one of the sacred rituals of Islam, the one who created for you, out of you, a partner and placed between you affection and mercy, and this being a sign for those who are reflecting. This is one of the great signs of God, and so it must be appraised correctly. And so a solemn covenant, Allah calls it. It's the most important covenant that happens between Muslims. The marital agreement is a solemn agreement to be revered. It permits for a man to have marital relations with his wife. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, the worthiest of rights to be delivered are the rights through which you gained access to one another, meaning the spouses. I wish to emphasize a few important points. One is that here at AMJA, with regards to this issue in particular, we have so much care and time spent dedicated to the issue of family. Of course, we have, and you have seen for years and years on end, refining the family code and its corollaries that work to minimize disputes and conflict and tension. And so we want to get to a point where we even have templates that has both Islamic legitimacy and legal application. Also, facilitating knowledge for people, not just the common folk and the masses, but for distinguished students of knowledge and fellow scholars like yourselves. And of course, all of you are consumed many a times with the dramatic domains of disputation and the tensions of conflict very complex, and so we wish to mitigate and minimize as best we can these phenomenon. And not being able to deal with these correctly can and do, in fact, drive people to seek out judgment, to seek out relief for their conflicts, resolutions outside of the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, i.e. the local court systems. And so this is why we are in need of recruiting all of the expertise that we can reach that is relevant to this domain. So why do we need cooperation between experts in fiqh and experts in law, civil law, for instance? It's not even just sort of the Islamic and the local laws. It is even sort of the secondary or the associated. We're not just here to figure out ways to terminate marriages, right? Or some technicalities on how to effect a contract at the moment of marriage, but even how to rectify and resume a marriage using the proper specialists in those fields, like counselors as well. And so, and it is difficult. To give you an example, at a prenuptial agreement, for instance, you can't have it a day or two before your marriage. The law would throw it out in the trash. It has to be given in what is known as like enough time for a person to be able to carefully review it, consult others on it. And so these things may go over our heads. We may not be privy to them. They're not common sense, and so unless you're aware of them, you're not going to be able to operate correctly within them or in light of them. And so we wish to create templates that serve as a prototype or a basic framework, and then it can be customized or developed or built out in a particular way that varies from state to state and its laws, or couple to couple. And their circumstances. And so the hope is that it will be a flexible enough framework that allows for people to work off of it live, a starter. At the same time, it doesn't leave them stranded for where do I begin. Inshallah, in the presentation you will see this. And so we're trying to vitalize and mature these documents through sharing with them recommendations, certain reservations, whatever it's going to be from the Islamic side, and they are building it out in the legal sense to make sure it is admissible, functional, in light of the judicial precedents or guidelines. And we need to also take into consideration the fact that we have definitive guidance of reconciling Islamic with the local, because of what problematizes this is that Islam has so much specific guidance, right? It's not like the Jewish or Christian tradition, which gives a lot more flexibility, a lot less detail. It is more abstract, more obscure, and so that is another layer of complexity that we have. I attended, for instance, certain marital agreements. There's like huge shortfalls in these countries. At times, the conditions for a valid contract don't exist to begin with, or there. For instance, there's no discussion of a mahr to begin with, regardless of whether the mahr is a condition or a pillar or otherwise. It's just not even there. Sometimes, the witness, you don't even know who that is. It's just some first name or some scribble of a signature, or the absence of a wali. Or the witness, what did you sort of witness? Did you witness that she approved? Did you witness the mahr? So he doesn't bear witness to anything. He just attended to and can testify as an eyewitness to the fact that an officiation took place, an offer and acceptance. Why is there a witness to begin with? For these things, to account for these things. Also, the proper documentation is missing. A woman comes, previously married, divorced. It doesn't say this woman has to have her documentation for her divorce. When has she divorced? This has to be documented. Leaves no room for ambiguity or having to backtrack after you perform their marriage. Wait, now she has two husbands. Also, like the guardian authorizes someone else to carry out the marriage in his place. That's his right to do that. But should we not have a power of attorney or like a clarification documented that I sort of confer upon him the agency vested in me by Islam, I sort of forwarded onto this person? That needs to be, in writing, so no one can come later and say I never authorized him or something of that nature. So in reality, there's lots of sort of superficiality in how the marital agreements are taking place. So we're not talking about the bare minimum to come full circle with the contract in the most basic rudimentary way. We're talking about how do we ensure the rights of the spouses, how do we make sure we mitigate, what consumes the bandwidth or causes sort of tensions and all of these things that we all deal with on a daily basis. Even the issue of premarital explanations, clarity. People do this stuff, like in the middle of the wedding, that, we remind him and we remind her, and then he goes, this is not the place for it, because the person is not going to say no at that point. It's just, they're in the hot seat. Do they understand this stuff? Do they have any follow-up questions on it? Do they accept or object? This is sort of overlooked with regards to the the preconditions or the stipulations as well. AMJA and its family code permitted that stipulations be made. The wife can stipulate in her husband what she believes is more suitable to them having a stable marriage, suitable for the longevity, conducive to the longevity of the relationship, such as not marrying a second wife, or her right to stay in a certain town, or her right to pursue her career, or the likes. And so if the husband has offered this stipulation, he is bound by that stipulation, that condition. Summarize in the next 5 minutes to give our two specialists The issue of conditions. The majority, actually, let's begin. The view we take at AMJA, it can be stipulated so long as it is not so long as it serves the function of the marriage and protecting the marriage, and is not contrary to the fundamental nature of marriage. The lawyers talk about a post-nuptial agreement, post-marriage contract. These will have different rulings Islamically, right? Is he committed to them and the likes? One of the conditions, there are valid and invalid conditions. As for the majority, they say it is recommended to fulfill the promises made after marriage. This is just an example, right, of the interplay between these two domains. Whereas what we chose here at AMJA is that it is mandatory because while it is not like the conditions before the marriage takes place, those are the worthiest of rights to be carried out, that which you gain access to each other by. That's what the hadith says. But the ones that are made after the marriage are still a promise, and a Muslim should be held to his word. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Awfu bil-uqud," fulfill your covenants. This is not a condition for the validity of the marriage, but it's a condition for the validity of Allah's pleasure, if you will. It is still mandatory on you. It's part of the conditions of being an upright Muslim. The verse says, "Oh, you have believed, uphold your covenants." And we are not saying that, any condition later and also we have to talk about the issue of like if a contract condition is not fulfilled in the prenuptial, for example, that I will not move her out of this town, then he wants to change that. That doesn't dissolve the contract, by the way. That gives her the right to ask for the annulment of the marriage. As Umar radiallahu anh said, these conditions that you set on each other, people in general, these are the intersections of rights. These are people's rights start and end. So they become binding Islamically if you agree on them, and they are permissible to begin with, and you agree on them personally. Then their contracts stipulate, if you stipulate that he will not marry a second wife. Some scholars say she can't set that condition to begin with, but the stronger view is that she does have the right to set that condition on him. When it comes to adjudication, there has to be an arbiter to sort of like decide between them. And so the reference point for when disagreements happen being set in these contracts as a condition before it happens, this is the and then there's issues of like conditions that are false and can render the marriage invalid altogether, such as agreeing on a term for the marriage, meaning setting it from the beginning, declaring it a temporary marriage, and on the condition that we will be married for a year, and then we'll look into it if we want to sort of recreate the contract and sort of get married again or continue or the likes. This would be absolutely invalid. Or to say that the 20% of what you have earned becomes my dowry, the deferred dowry. We would say it's an invalid contract, because this is undue risk taking. This is too much ambiguity. So it would be an invalid contract because the contract has to be clear, has to be defined. The 20% could be $1 million, it could be $20, and so that would not be allowed. It would have to be spelled out. So there has to be half my. If you say something's a gift has to be handed over, and so this would be an invalid condition, not an invalid contract. Or a haram condition, like I will. I'll let the lawyers present for my brothers and sisters to share what they have, and I hope that this template will be something you can all benefit from and build on and find relief in. And, one last thing that comes to mind, it says that if you work, then this. You will be responsible for this and entitled to that. You will have to spend on the house as well. If the contract involves that, this will sort of preempt dispute later. Inshallah, once you have it in front of you, you can share with us your thoughts on it.